Hey guys, it's Israel, and today we are going to be talking about policy-based authorization in a .NET 6 API using JWT. This video is going to be a continuation of the playlist where I've already gone over JSON Web Tokens and adding role-based authorization to, again, a .NET 6 API. The link to that playlist should be in the description. And if you guys want to pause and go to that playlist, watch those other videos to kind of catch up with the code or just what else I've talked about, because I've talked about a lot in depth about JWT and role-based and all that stuff, and then want to come back, that's totally fine. The video is still going to be here. It's YouTube, right? But with all that being said, let's get back to policies and dive into what is policy-based authorization. So before we dive into the code, I want to explain what are policies and how they are used in conjunction with JWT to actually, authorize given endpoints and make them a little bit more secure. So let's dive into what they are. So what are policies? Policies are a collection of requirements that the user or account currently using the app must meet to be able to access something. They're more flexible, but much more complex than roles, and again, allow for a more flexible security model, especially as, roles or variations and different things that you have to check increases. These policies get declared in your program.cs file, and once registered, these policies are applied at every endpoint that has the decorator for it. As you can see, an example is right there in the slide. So there are actually three types of policies, and I'm going to show you guys in the code all three of these, but I want to explain very quickly kind of what they are. So you have the simple policies. These look very similar to the role-based policies, except they are declared in the program.cs, but you can chain them together and do a few more unique things with the values in your token. Number two is going to be the function policies. These are Lambda functions, and you can check with a little bit more logic whatever requirements that you need. And here you can actually use, ands or ors, so you can check, does this have this and this? And if not, you can, check or this. So you can use a little bit more logic in these functions. And like I said, we'll see in the example. And number three, we have the custom authorization policies. These are the most complex type of policies you can have, and you don't just declare these in the program.cs. This is a collection of requirements that all must pass or the policy fails. They require to have a requirements class and also an authorization handler class, and I'll show you guys how to do that. And then you kind of create kind of a singleton in the services section so that you can actually inject these and then use whatever type of services. You can have full-blown logic in these policies. And again, I'll show you guys an example just now to make sense of all of this, because they are a little bit complicated when you see them. But now, like I said, let's dive into the code so I can show you guys examples of all three of these so we can fully understand and comprehend how to use them and what they are. And before we hop into the code, if you guys find this video helpful, please consider subscribing and dropping a like on this video so it can spread to many other developers. So thank you. And if you want to support me even further, check out my Patreon. All the links are in the description. And like I said earlier, this video will continue to use the code from this JWT series. The GitHub link is also going to be in the description. The project has been updated after the last role-based auth video. So the JWT app YT is the project name. So go check that out. Download it if you want, or you can just follow along with this project. But now on to the policies. So now we are back at the project. So the JWT app YT project, to be exact, the one that I mentioned a little bit earlier, you guys can go download from the GitHub link, or if not, I can just give you guys a quick rundown. So if I run it, you guys can see all the methods that I have here. So we currently just have a login method, we have a register method, and then a get color list. The get color list is kind of the endpoint that we've been kind of protecting and switching out, whether it's just the authorize or the role base. And now we're going to do the policy base. So that's the one we've been protecting. And other than this, we just have a register and a login that we're just passing in variables using Postman. So Postman right here, this is what we have been using for just logging in and registering. So that's been kind of my client side. And yeah, very straightforward. You look in here, we just have the auth controller. This is what handles right now the login, the register, and then in here we're kind of giving our JWT token with, you can see that we had roles. This was added in the previous video. As well as, again, like I said, this is just an items controller, which is what has our color list, which is kind of the data we are trying to access. And then we just have three models here for registering the users and the login. And other than that, we had our app settings with our secret. And that is basically the project that we have right now. It's not too complicated. And now let's go ahead and let's add policies. So let's start with the first one, the very simple policies. These are going to be very straightforward, very easy to add in. They look very similar to kind of how you're adding in claims here, except you're now doing it in your program.cs. So let's go do that. Okay, so now I'm at my program.cs file, and now let's actually add in, our first policy, the very basic, simple ones, so we can just kind of check very quickly that this stuff is kind of working. So we're just going to add a builder. We're going to add authorization to this, and we're going to add our options. And then now that we're in here, what we're going to do is we need the brackets here, the curly braces. Let me adjust this. So now that we're in here, our first one that we're going to do is we're going to do options dot add policy, and we're going to call this an admin. So this is going to be admin only. Let's call this. So basically, this is only going to be a policy. This is going to be a policy for only admins. So you have to be an admin to be able to access this. Or we can say you can be an admin and also a manager. Those are kind of like the administrative level. So you can kind of compare to, or you can just have one. So let's go ahead with that. So let's first just start with one. So let's require the role to be admin. And that's it. So we've created a policy. This is a policy called admin only, and we're requiring admin. So now if we go to the items controller, we can now change this. We can change it to policy. And we can go ahead and grab this and say it's going to be admin only. And if we remember correctly, when we go here, we set the role. So whenever I register a new user, I have to pass in the role. So depending on the role, I should be able to easily and very quickly check, hey, does this policy even do anything? So this should be all set up now. So now let's run it and let's check this out. Okay, so my project is running now. So now let's actually check and see if the admin policy is actually working. So now that we have this working, I'm going to close this. I'm going to open Postman. So as you can see in my object here, on my register method, I'm going to register myself with the role of admin. This should go through. I was created in the list since I, again, am just using a list of users. So every time I restart the application, I'm going to have to re-register and log in. But that's just to save me the time of setting up a database right now. And now let us log in. We're going to go in here. You're going to see that this role is admin again. So that is what we're using. But instead of using the role-based where we're going to be checking this, we created a policy. So the policy is what we're actually using. I'm going to get this token. And just to confirm to you guys that that is what kind of was created, we're going to go into JWT.io. You're going to see the role is admin. That's what was created with my name. So now, again, on the items controller, we have a policy. We do not have the role. So we are checking the policy admin only, which again is requiring the role of admin. So now whenever we go back here, I'm not going to go to my bearer token. I'm going to replace it with the token that was just created, that I just copied. And I'm going to send, and boom, you see that it's 200 okay. It's letting me in. So it's checking that role, but it's going to this policy now, and it's checking this. So now, again, let's say that I decide instead to create a new user. So this new user is going to be Bob, and he is HR. So Bob is HR. We're going to sign in Bob. So now Bob is going to go over here, and Bob's going to try and log in. Bob now has an HR role. Continue. We're going to get this token. Let's confirm to you guys again what we have. Bob is HR. So when Bob tries to access this, he will not pass this policy. So he should not be able to get into this list. Let's go back here, replace our token. And forbidden. Bob is HR, not an admin, so he cannot get this role. And this is how you do simple. This is like a simple policy right here. But you can chain policies together, and I can show you guys very easily. So what you can also do is you can say, okay, so like I just said, you can have admin and HR, and that technically in your organization, in your company, could be administrative level. So you can kind of be like, oh, these are the same for this given policy. We don't really care. Both of these are kind of on the same level. And then let's make it a little bit more complicated. You can also say that you require a claim where your ID, where you have to be a certain person to access this. So let's say that you have to be me. You have to be me to access this. So you're requiring the role to be one of these two, and also you're requiring that I am myself. So this could be like my username, or whatever handle this account has. Could be this. And here I'm using the ID because it's already in the JWT token. Let me see. So it's already right here. So we already have it, so I'm just going to use it. So if we go back here, this is what we're using. So now let's check this. Let's see if it actually kind of works. So as you guys remember, we just created a Bob that was HR. So HR is valid, but this is Bob, not me. So we're going to register quickly. Let's log him in. As you can remember, his role is HR, but his username is Bob. That's not me. So as we can see, we're going to go, we got this token. In this token, we're going to go back here. Let's copy it in. 403 forbidden. He is not allowed to get in because he is Bob. He is not myself and HR or an admin. So he doesn't pass all of those. And that's a very easy and simple way to just add on, a claim to this policy and just continue to add a little bit more complexity to it without really needing to do any extra logic or adding a lot to it. You just kind of method chain them together, and it's very simple. And to prove that, that works, I could just change myself here now. I can just put my name, log in as myself. And now I'm going to have the role of HR, which is going to pass here, but I'm also myself. So I'm going to pass here. So going back here, let's grab this token. And send. And now, boom, we get the list. So that is how you do kind of the simple claims. But now let's move on to the Lambda functions so I can show you guys kind of the next step where you can actually add a little bit more logic to your stuff. And it just allows you to do just a little bit more with the different claims in your tokens and your roles and everything like that. So let's move on to those now. Okay, so we are back at our program.cs. And like I said, we're not going to move over to the Lambda function type of policies. So this is going to look something like this. So you're going to add another policy. You're again going to give it a name. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to say kind of like this is our exclusive content on whatever application, and you either have to be a certain person or you have to be an admin to get into this, and you have to make sure that you have this claim that you are this person, or you have to have this given administrative role. So we're going to call this exclusive. And now we are again going to just do a policy. We are not going to do a require role. We are going to require an assertion. So we're going to have to assert that the values that we want are actually here. So we are going to check the context, and we're going to check the user object. We are going to check, does it have the claim of type ID with the value of my name? So that is what we're going to check here. So as you can see here, we've now finished typing this policy. So this is the first part. This is not the completed kind of Lambda function that I want to do. What we're doing here, as you can see, is you're adding a policy. You're doing an exclusive policy. And once you have the name, you're going into the policy and you're saying, I want to require that this claim has to have a claim of the type ID and also with my name in it. But let's say that you don't. We want to give it an option. We want it to be flexible. So to be flexible, we say or, and we say it might have the context user. And we think it's fine if they are also just, kind of a super admin. If they're a super admin, we also don't really care, and that's totally fine with us. So this is kind of the Lambda function where you can give options, which is different from the simple policy that you see up here, where you don't really have any place where you can really add a lot of logic in here. The simple way is you can kind of extend it, and now in here, you can actually create a little bit more. You can add a little bit more logic to it. You've extended the functionality of what this is, and you can obviously continue to do more. You could group these together into an and an or, and this is where the logic kind of happens, and it just is an extension of this. So now if I use this here, go here, I put this in here. Now the difference is we're going to be using this one. So basically, I have to either be myself or I can be a super admin. Either one of those should give me access. So now let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I want to do now that it's running, we are going to again create. So I'm going to be a super admin, but we're going to do Bob. So now let's register. Let's log in Bob. So again, this role is a super admin and you're Bob. So you're not myself. Get in here. Let's take this token. So again, he got the list. Why did Bob get the list? Because Bob was a super admin. But now let's change that. What if it was Bob, but Bob was HR? Well, that shouldn't pass, correct? It shouldn't. Let me restart this application really fast. So now that we've restarted it, I'm now going to create Bob, but Bob is going to be HR. So of course, this isn't going to work. Why? Because Bob comes in here and he's not going to be HR. So he has he's not neither myself and is also not a super admin. So we're going to take the token from here. And now we're going to put it in here. And 403 forbidden because he does not pass being myself and is also not a super admin. And now let's test kind of the flip side of that. Flip side of that being that we're not going to create myself, but I'm HR. So we go in here. That is not the right person. Boom. I got my token. So again, let's confirm. You go in here, you can check, oh, it's myself, but I'm HR. But it doesn't matter because since I am myself, I don't really care if that I'm not a super admin. And now we're going to dive in here, press it, boom, we got our list. So that's how you can see how you can add a little bit more logic to where you're doing all of this. So you can add kind of the logic, or you can have an and here, you can have an and add another one. So you can play with a lot of that, and it gives you a lot of flexibility and adds a little bit more functionality to that. And that's how you can check that. But now let's move to kind of the more difficult to grasp, which is the complex policies. And I want to explain this and take my time. So let's dive into those. So for the example that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be needing the birthday of somebody because I want to check, are they older than 21? Are they older than this certain age so they can access this content? And also, do they have this given role? So are they also an admin? So the first thing that we're going to need to do that is in our register method and our user method, we're going to need to add birthday. So we're going to need to be able to grab birthday from the users, because we are going to need it for the claim that we're going to have to add into our token, which is adding in the user's birthday. So now that we've added these two in, now the next thing is that we're going to need to add this to our token. So now that we're at our token, we are going to just go in here into the subject, and we're going to add a new claim of date birthday. And we are going to say the user birthday, which the user is when we log in, we find the user object, and then that's going to contain the birthday. So we're going to add in the birthday that the user types in at the beginning. And obviously, you know, you would have more checks when you're registering that they write a valid birthday and the formatting and all of that. But in our case, you know, this is a test I'm showing you guys. So I can expect that I'm going to type in my birthday correctly. And then you're going to add in the claim here. And then that's going to be now in your token. And you can use that in the further example. The other thing that we are going to have to do is we're going to have to add the birthday down here, which just means writing it here. So that means in my list, in your database, whenever you save the birthday, it is going to get saved. If not, you're going to forget it, and then it's not going to be there when you want to use it in your token. And now let's move on to actually creating what you're going to need to do these checks. The first thing you're going to want to do now is create an authorization folder. So let me create this folder now here. New folder. It's going to be called Authorization. And you're going to have two files basically. two classes that go with these custom policies. You're going to have a handler and you're going to have a requirement class. In the requirements is where you're going to be passing in everything that this policy is going to need to check or validify that this person, this account can access this or cannot access this. So the requirement is kind of like it says, this is where everything that you're going to need kind of should be, because this is kind of what's required. And also this is kind of the values that we're going to test against as well. And then in the handler is where you're actually going to have the logic where you now check using these requirements, using whatever values you need from the user or the JWT, is where you're actually going to do kind of the checking, the validation now. So now let's actually do that. So let's create these two classes. So you're going to have a new item class. They're going to be a little long-winded, but that's just what I am going to call them here. So I'm going to say is old enough with role handler. And then I'm going to just go ahead and create the other one as well. This is going to be is old enough with role requirement. Okay, so first let's go ahead with the requirement. It's going to be very short. So you basically just want to create a constructor, because this constructor is basically going to tell it that we need to pass in a value in the program.cs that our then method that's going to be checking for this comparison that we have everything correct. We're going to need this value assigned basically by, whoever is creating this application, this authorization. So basically, it's just kind of like a model. You just going to have, so we're going to need the minimum age that is allowed to access this content, and you're going to have to pass it in, and we'll see where you have to pass that in a little bit. And you have to extend the authorization requirement. So you'll have to do an import, I believe. Yes, .NET Core authorization. And now this is what you're extending. This represents an authorization requirement. And now with this, we're not going to go to our handler. In our handler, we are now going to do an authorization. Just copy this over. An authorization handler. So we're going to do an authorization handler to say that that's what this file is, and that we're extending, that we're going to be using the requirement. So the requirement's going to be in here. And now that we have this, we are going to do a protected method, protected override task, and it's going to be called a requirement async. So we're handling the requirements async. Let me bring this method stuff in. So we're passing in, so we're getting our context. So this context is basically all the authorization stuff. So this is basically where the token. So basically what we were doing, let me see. So basically this right here, this context that we were using for this, that had our claims, that had our values, everything from our token that our user has, that is basically what we're passing in here in our handler. And then these requirements are these values, the values that come from here. So we can see that in a second. I can show you what I mean. So if we put requirements, requirement is going to have that min age value. And that's the only thing it's going to have, because that's the only thing we gave it. And then our context, it's going to have our user at the bottom. Our user, and then we can access our claims, our identity, blah, 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 blah. Whatever we may have, that's what we're going to have here. So now what I want to do first of all is I want to grab the birthday, because what are we doing in here is we're going to check, is this user old enough? Is this user old enough to then access the content? We're going to say that they have to be 21 and up for whatever content's here, but we also want them to be an admin per se. So let's just to spice it up a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do here is our user is going to have a date of birth, and we're going to want to get that value. We're going to get that string value, and we're going to want to convert it to a date time, obviously, so we can actually work with the date, because we have to calculate this person's birthday or their age using their birthday is what I mean. The next thing I have is I just found a quick age little bit of logic on Stack Overflow, trusted source. And this can very quickly just calculates your age. So now that we can calculate our age quickly, this next part is basically the thing that says, do you pass or do you fail? So basically right here, we are getting the requirement, that min age, which I'm about to show you where you have to put in that number. And then you're using your age. So basically, is your age bigger than the min age or equal to? You're good to go. Thumbs up. Or do you have the role? In my example, I did HR, but I actually want to do admin here. So, and are they older? And do they contain in the user the role admin? If so, success. Else, you say fail. And that basically is what says you failed this policy. We're not letting you through. Or you succeed. We're going to not let you through. And then it says this task, this check is now completed. So you guys can see how basically here we now, instead of something that looks kind of like this, where it's like just a little policy, just inline policy right here where you require a role, or here where you're checking a little claim, how you can have full-blown logic checking checking a multitude of things where you can actually do full-blown checks for a lot of things, and you can actually you can do multiple of these. You can have different types. You can do one for the birthday. You can do one for a role and separate them out. You don't have to actually have them nested together or like check two things at once. You could check one thing and you could also have another one, and they're just all within that same policy. I'm just doing it here just for the example, but you could definitely do just age here. You could only check for age, and then you could have another one of these custom policies that checks only are they in this role. So now the question is, how do you actually add this to your project? So what you do first is you have to add it to your services. So first thing you're going to do, you're going to add it here. So you're adding a singleton of your authorization handler, which is right here. And you're saying that you have this file and you want it to be injected wherever you need it. But now how do you actually add the policy? Well, you go right here, and I'm just going to copy it in. You're going to have your is old enough with role policy. And then right here is where you add your requirements. You see this 21? That's what I was talking about, is goes right here. And then that number is what's then used here and then comes here. And that's how you use it. So that's how you kind of pass these values that you're going to then use later to validate or authorize whoever's going to come through. And then the next thing is we're going to need to go to our items controller. And to actually test this, I'm going to have to add age into my register object. So as you can see on runtime, boom, it's already in there. Project loads. Now let's go in here. I'm going to need this new object. I want to do admin because I actually want to get in. Log in. Log in again. Let me get my token. So you can see my birth date, my role, and my name. So now let's actually go in here. And this should let me go in, but I also want to trace down and actually show you guys what's going on here. So as you can see, my context is right here. Let's go into my user, check my claims. You can see that it's my name again. I have my role of admin and my birth date. So all those things are in here now. All those things are in here. You can see all of that. And if you look at the requirements, you have that min age of 21. So now whenever I step through, you can see that I now have the date, time, actual object of my birthday. And when we skip through, we have my age now, which is actually 28. That's how old I am. And you're comparing it to 21, and you're good. And then you're checking in the user claim. Do I have a claim of admin? Yes, I do. And now you succeed. So you step through. And now in my postman, you see that I get it. That's how you do it. But now again, let's say that I am not myself anymore. Let's say that I now create a new account, but this account is HR. So this account is now HR. Let's restart this. So now if I do HR, this is going to be slightly different, and you're going to see what's going to happen. So I get through here. It's going to have my birthday again. So I'm going to have that age, but I'm not going to be an admin anymore. So let's take that token, stick it in here, and you're going to see what happens now. So now I again still am above 21, but if I go into my user claim, I now am an HR. So whenever we get down here, I'm going to fail. So when I continue, we are now forbidden. And that is how you guys do custom policies. And yeah, I think they're really cool, and you have a lot of different opportunities and things you can do with them. Like you can go in here and you can add even more requirements if you wanted to. You could also add in more of these handlers, and then you can use more than one. You don't just have to use one here. You can have like 2 or 3, so that for a given policy you have to check multiple handlers, and it has to pass every single one of those to actually give access. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with them. They are kind of complex, but once you kind of understand how they work and their mechanics, they are really cool, and I think you'll really appreciate them, and they'll start obviously being more clear. And if you guys enjoyed this video, then you'll probably enjoy my full explanation of what JWT, what JSON Web Tokens actually are. So go check out this video right here.